What is up, RotoGrinders? Dean here, Dean78904, invading the turf that is Blenders. Blender, of course, typically this is when you'll be doing your show, 11 o'clock on the East Coast, but as is the case many times, Wednesday, Thursday, split slates, getaway day. We got a split slate today. I believe it's a 7 or 8 gamer later on tonight. Of course, we'll be back later, 5 o'clock on the East Coast, taking you up to the late lock, but this is the first half of it. We have a 4-gamer Blender. Get your buckets ready. The Atlanta Braves, headline the slate to take it on the newly acquired Lucas Giolito, making his Angels debut. Erod, Eduardo Rodriguez. Blender, he had the opportunity to leave Detroit yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw this. He was traded to the Dodgers, and I'm not sure why nobody asked him, hey, before we spend all this manpower and all this time and all this conversation, hey, would you be interested in waiving your no trade before we waste a billion hours?
Well, they assumed that people wouldn't want to stay in Detroit.
It's I don't know what he has going on with his life, but he chose to stay in Detroit. I think there was 10 teams he didn't have to get traded to, and I think LA was one of them. Apparently, I feel like that's what I read. He didn't want to go for whatever reason, and that was his choice, and he had the opportunity. And it's odd to me that they never asked him. I guess because why waste all that time if you knew he was going to go there anyway? But he's still in Detroit, and he's throwing baseballs today in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. Do have that lineup out. There is one game where we have no lineups just yet. Of course, that is a 2-10 game. Cleveland versus the Astros. Blanco versus Bybee. The Astros coming off the no-hitter yesterday. We talked about it yesterday in Crunch Time. It was interesting. Framber Valdez. It's I liked Framber Valdez. I was fine, but I liked some other guys more than him. But every 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, Cleveland was losing a man. I don't know if you saw that, but they kept selling guys off, and guys were getting scratched in their lineup they rolled out yesterday. It was J-Ram and a bunch of dudes. It was pretty horrific. It was pretty terrible. And we saw a Maddox, too. It was maybe 90 pitches or so for Framber Valdez. Just a spectacular job there against Cleveland. I think it was just one walk, too. He almost had a perfect game. Pretty close there to getting the perfect game on this Cleveland Guardians team. Waiting for those lineups. Blender, how are things in your world? How are we doing it on a Wednesday afternoon? Wednesday morning.
Good. I already got most of my props in. Right. I've been focusing a lot on prize picks and underdog, getting the numbers early, getting the best price. That's the number one thing. If you want to increase your profitability or to have the best chance, is just as long as you're getting the best number, the best price, you're fine. You're just throwing away money otherwise.
Are you usually getting these 3 in the morning or 9 in the morning?
No. I 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., 8:30. I'm not saying you. Okay, let me be clear. You don't have to get the best number because when you say the best, it's I got to wake up at 4 in the morning or whatever. It's just get the best number that you can. Get a number better than what it is. By the time the game starts, if the number is moved, if the price is moved, even if you're doing, money line, spreads, totals, whatever, right? Just get the best line you can. Maybe someone got a better line, right? I got Hogan Harris at under 5 strikeouts on underdog earlier today. It's now down to 4.
That feels pretty good. Worst case scenario, it feels like a tie. Not, obviously it could get worse, but
but you wouldn't take it now. Yeah. But the thing that I'm saying is that at 8 o'clock, it was at 5, but then it got back up at 9 o'clock. It was at 4.5.
Yeah.
So if you went under 4.5, you didn't get the best number, but you still got a better number than 4.
I'm checking our projection on Harris. I'm curious.
Those are integers.
You can't fool me with math. I don't know if you know this, but I went to UCF, so you gotta come at me with something else and come a little stronger than that than single digit.
It's Florida. They give out diplomas in Florida.
I mean, mine's somewhere. I don't know where it is, but theoretically, I believe I got one at some point.
Is it in crayon?
Quite possibly. I don't know. I'm pulling it up right now and see where we have what is our projection for him? I'm on the scores and odds page right now. As a wrestling guy, are you more apt or less apt to bet on Hogan Harris?
Obviously, that's a dumb question.
Well, I was trying to stall because I wanted to pull up Hogan. I couldn't get
dude, you know who you're talking to? Like,
Well,
dude,
Hogan's
I
also
don't even care what the
disliked.
names are in the beginning. So whatever. Because it's Hulk Hogan Harris. I got an extra unit on that. No, of course.
No, I was referencing Bobby Harris, who's very popular. You know Bobby Harris on the
Bobby
he was
Harris.
big in the
Are there other wrestlers on the slate? Well, let's take. Is there anything?
We can have some fun with it, I'm sure. Harris, by the way, according to Scores and Odds, we are projecting 3.9 is our projection for Harris. You can bet over 3.5 at -150, but seems like a miserable bet. Laying that kind of juice, I would not do that. In the Fanduel Sportsbook, plus 130 over 4.5. So there you go. Is there anything else you want to share with the people as far as other sharp numbers you may have got that potentially have not expired just yet that could be useful?
Oh, you want the unexpired ones? I like giving out the ones that are already expired.
You're just throwing it in their face. Like, yeah, if you would have.
Well, yeah, I'm highlighting the point. This is a teaching show. This is what I do at 11 o'clock in the morning, Dean.
You're victory lapping before it even happens.
No, but I teach. But the whole thing is not for me to give you the fish. It's to teach you to fish early. And you know when you go fishing? You go fishing earlier in the day, right?
You think I fish? Like, honestly,
God knows when to go fishing.
I know people do it, but I don't understand. You know,
me neither. But people wake up at 4 a.m. to go fishing, so it's like that
seems miserable. I appreciate those that do it, but it seems absolutely miserable.
Right? Like I got Wade Miley under 4. Right? It's off the board on Underdog, and it's down to 3.5 on Prize Picks. Don't do that. Get it at 4. Did you? Oh well, you just got here. Well, you missed it. Early bird gets the worm. Is there anything on the okay? According to the bat projections, I think the two ones that look the most appealing are Musgrove under 6.5 hits allowed. That's available on Underdog, and Brandon Williamson under 4 strikeouts. That's available on both sites. The fact that has not moved, I mean, it's probably not going to move to 3.5. It's like right in the middle, like that. That's okay.
You're talking all these different slates. You're throwing me off. I'm like Musgrove. I'm like, I don't think that's in the night slate. I think it's in the middle.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. There's no slates on Prize Picks and Underdog.
Okay,
so
just only this.
Okay, so I only have to look at this slate.
It just took me a second. I'm like Musgrove. I didn't know Musgrove was pitching today because I did research for the night slate already, and I've done research for the day slate that we're going to talk about in a second. But I'm like Musgrove, and it took me a second. It took me a second to get there. It's all. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. They're still in cores. It's like a 3 or 4 o'clock game. It's like not on any DFS slate unless it's like a showdown or something like that. But yeah, all right. But yeah, like you said, it's useful if you can get it on Underdog and Prize Picks. Who cares if you like the number?
The number's the number. Who cares?
And Hogan Harris is another guy who's pitching it.
Right. You got if they're the same name as a wrestler, Shane McClanahan sounds a lot like Shane McMahon. So you got
there you go.
You got to bet the under on Shane McClanahan.
Did he tear his Achilles at the most recent WrestleMania?
Yes. And then he got his people's elbow by Snoop Dogg. Yeah.
Which could only happen in wrestling, that sentence. Like in no other world. Like what other world is that like a real sentence that actually happened?
Right. Like, oh yeah. And then he got people's elbowed by Snoop Dogg.
Of course he did. Like why wouldn't he? Do you want to say what's up to the chat? What's up? We see GR Sauce, Eric, Mark, those hanging out. Kindly hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. Do all those things. 11:45-ish. We got crunch time coming in. You have TastefulTides and Dave Potts, 2-time owner winner. Cheeseisgood, Kevin Roth, chief mineralogist. Hold it down, taking y'all straight up the lock. I believe 12:20 is the official lock time, which was the reason why it's kind of a goofy as far as the time we're going to be getting out of here. We have a 4-gamer to break down. We're still waiting for some lineups, like we said. No Washington Nationals just yet. No Guardians. No Astros. The Braves are the clear and obvious most dominant offense in the slate. Now, Giolito is probably one of the better pitchers in the slate. Kind of a splits neutral guy historically, maybe a little bit of a reverse split. But do the Braves ever rest their players? I feel like the Braves have the same lineup every day. Every once in a while they'll have Darnell play.
Why would you change? But don't break what. I mean, don't fix.
It's a long season. Broken. It's a long season. I feel like Acuna never rests. I feel like Albies never rests.
What are you restful? How old is Ronald Acuna?
It's a long season. You think he's 24 or 25? He's incredible.
Okay, but he's a 25-year-old. He can play every day.
He played last night.
When you get to our age, then you could rest.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's
when you get to our age, we don't have to do me getting up and going to the refrigerator is a busy day.
And then you
Right. Oh, I went out to Kroger and I got some groceries. Ugh, I need a 2-hour nap.
Well, you got some baseball to watch. Maybe that'll induce it for you.
Oh, I've not watched a single game this year.
That's the craziest thing. I watch an insane amount of baseball, way too much, multiple games at a time, and you would be completely miserable if you were living my life as far as how much baseball I'm watching on a daily basis. By the way, Erod, who was potentially traded yesterday, he was not. Well, he was traded. Then he said, "Nah, I'm good." He's the highest projected owned pitcher today, taking on Pittsburgh. Of course, a nice ballpark there in Pittsburgh. 46% is the ownership. The pitching options are not spectacular, but amongst this group, he's probably the most talented, if not maybe Mackenzie Gore. He's pretty good facing a Milwaukee team that's, there's some decent guys, but they're not spectacular. Tanner Bybee's getting 27% against the Astros. Blanco on the other side getting 22%. Bido is getting 22% versus Detroit. Detroit is pretty horrific, and Bido is really cheap, but he's probably one of the keys to unlocking the Braves. If you want to stack Atlanta, Bido's probably like that combination. I know you're big in that kind of conversation. It's like, well, if you play him, then all of a sudden now you have the Braves, and you're all sharing the similar thought process.
Right. Right. My attitude is if you play Bido, I think play the Astros at their price.
Yeah.
I mean, the chalk on this slate is the combination of Erod, Gore, and then Atlanta and Cleveland. Cleveland is cheap, and you're dealing with Ronel Blanco, who ain't okay in a world beater. Cleveland's lineup is not great. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like today, but I mean, they're cheap. So it's like outside of Jose Ramirez, you get Will Brennan at 2,500, got Oscar Gonzalez at 2,400, Bo Naylor catching at 2,700, Gabriel Arias, who he's either going to get you 17 strikeouts or a home run. He's 2,500. He's shortstop eligible, which helps you also. So I see the combination. If you try to avoid the chalk, combinatorically, it would be.
That's the word I was trying to get to. I know that's one of your big buzzwords. Shout out to Pee Wee.
It's a real word, Dean. It's not a buzzword.
No, remember back in like Pee Wee's Playhouse, there was like a word of the day. Like combinatorially is a word of the day on the Blender show. Like everybody would start screaming when that gets dropped, like 4 times an episode. That's one of your big.
What we should do
on this Blender word.
That's what we should do is that the magic word today?
Yes.
Everyone has to hit the like button when you hear combinatorics. Ah!
Who was the guy? What was the guy's name in the box?
I don't know what's in the box, Dean.
What's in the box? You didn't watch the Playhouse when you were a child? You weren't aware of the show?
Didn't he die yesterday?
Yes. R.I.P. Paul Rubens. Yes.
So he's in the box now.
Well, Blender. I'm talking about on the show.
But he is in a box. I think maybe he got cremated. I don't know.
I don't know what happened to him.
He's in something. He's in some type of. He's either in a box or a little jar.
Yeah, there was the magician guy.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you know. I don't know the names, but I'm not 6 years old anymore.
There was Cherry and Globy. I don't know why I'm getting nostalgic for the Playhouse, but not really sure how that came up. But just sort of, this is what happens when myself and Blender get together. So, what's our plan?
It's a 4-game slate. If this was like a 9-game slate, I mean, we'd have more stuff to talk about.
Yeah. And speaking of like the boxes, well, it's not boxes, but it's buckets. You're gonna be throwing your offenses in buckets, and I'm curious how that's gonna work because I imagine that Atlanta is gonna be in their own bucket. Have you worked it out just yet as far as your buckets?
I'm gonna run it now. I'm running it now, Dean. I'm running the buckets.
Okay, and again, like
I can tell from the bat projections and even if I mix a little in the plate IQ projections that the highest projected builds are going to be something with like Gore Rodriguez, Braves, Guardians, and then you're going to get some Bido to fit in some of that in there. So I'm just gonna run 100 and see what happens.
Travis in chat is saying play whoever you want. I ran some optimals as well, just for fun. I did use the bat, and obviously this stuff is subject to change based upon actual lineups because we're guessing on 3 of them with some projections. Gore, like you said, Gore and Erod, the most popular combination as far as pitchers. Bido getting 25%, and that's not necessarily because of Bido, but because he sort of opens up the salary. We have TastefulTides, Tim in chat saying world-class filibustering. Yeah. Myself and Blender, we can say nothing for 2 hours if we're pushed to it, if we need to.
It's an entertaining nothing, though.
That's subjective. I think that's subjective. I don't know. Tim's going to be on later, by the way. Tim is probably coming on. He's like, I got to siphon. I got to steal some of these, some of the thought processes and repackage them later for the Crunch Time show because he's going to have to filibuster with Dave Potts in about a half hour or so.
Does the magic word continue to Crunch Time?
I don't know. I don't know if combinatorial. I think it's a Blender word.
Combinatorial. So Tim's got to use the magic word.
Yeah. What's funny is that Tim's been on a show before, like a live show before, and I will slide into. I'll send him a DM and I'll say like, I'll send him a movie quote and I'll say work this in somehow, and he like refuses. He won't play along. I'll say, hey, like just somehow casually put like, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're gonna get. Like it's like, Mackenzie Gore is like a box of chocolate. It's not hard to do. He just won't play along. He refused to do it. He does not like fun. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, which is an interesting stance that Tim takes. But we all live our life the way we want to, and he's anti-fun. That's a stance he's going to go with. Well, so what are we doing as far as stances? Blender, are you making a single entry lineup? I assume is that the attack?
Yeah, I'm making one lineup today for the 121. I'll throw in some other stuff as well. And amazingly enough, I'm running the buckets. I think Atlanta may actually be too expensive.
No,
I'm not sure if you could play
on a 4-game slate
plus Gore.
I just refuse to believe that they're too expensive. They're too expensive until they score 12 runs and then 5 homers, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, maybe I should have played Braves. You gonna be okay with their Blender? You have a beverage to maybe help you out or something? So you have a bit of a coughing fit. I would actually have to do like a real filibuster, but I think we're powering through. We all right, Blender?
No, I'm fine. I've had allergies the past 2 weeks. I had a cough. I had a sore throat. Then it turns out basically just allergies and mucus buildup in the mornings.
You're a gamer. I do appreciate you showing up. Travis wants to know. It's a great Blender question. Erod or Gore, and you would probably say, well, check the projections, right? Sure. Well, let's check the projections as far as Erod versus Gore, and depending on where you're looking, you got the bat projections. Shout out there at Cardi. Erod's slightly ahead. He's of course more expensive as well, but we're looking at 16-ish versus 15-ish as a median projection on DK, and the RotoGrinders MLB Plate IQ projections. We have Gore at 15-ish. Gore at almost 14 and Erod at 15 and change. But again, maybe that 2K or close to 2K in salary could be useful as well.
Okay, we got a Nationals lineup in.
How's it look?
And it's different from projected because Ruiz is out and Adams is in catcher. Vargas is not in, and it's Vargas. Who's in for Vargas? Dominant Dom Smith. Right.
Okay.
Now there's obviously some order. LaCall is batting 7th instead of 9th, but basically that should change. Vargas and Ruiz are out of the projected lineup, and in are Adams and Smith.
Okay, I don't know why I don't see it, but okay. I guess it'll be popping up in a second here on the RG
because I got TweetDeck.
Oh, my TweetDeck is broken.
Did you not pay your TweetDeck bill?
I don't want to get into the whole thing. I know it's a whole conversation. You're going to lecture me.
Write off, Dean. Who cares?
That's not the point. You know that's not the point. I don't care about
whatever you need. I need it for my stuff.
I know. I'm just a stubborn person.
Why I need it.
Yeah. So they intentionally broke TweetDeck unless you're paying X number of dollars. But yeah. All right. I'll be getting in a second. Life's been a little more difficult on Twitter these days, but we shall power through. And eventually, I'm sure we'll give in. My stubbornness will, subdue. We are waiting for, like you said, the last game will be Cleveland and Houston. What are you doing as far as pitchers? Are you taking that chalk? I assume, knowing you, unless you're doing something goofy as far as the bats, which you can. The slate's pretty open. Outside of the Braves, it's like pretty wide open. Are you going to you're not going to pair Erod and Gore? Maybe that.
Why not?
I don't want
to. I mean, you can't.
That's not something you do unless you're being totally different as far as the bats, which I guess that's
right.
big choice.
Pretty much my pool is. I'm pool whatever. I'm building one lineup.
Yeah,
it's going to be two of Rodriguez, Gore, and Bido. Obviously, the leverage play on a 4-game slate is to stack against Gore or Rodriguez, or even stack against Bido. Take Detroit, Milwaukee or Pittsburgh, but I don't know.
I think Milwaukee's going to be reasonably
popular. Do I want to play Wade
actually.
Miley against Washington? No. Do I want to play Chirinos? No. I mean, do you want to pay 10-1 for Giolito against Atlanta? Probably not. I guess Bybee is okay, but do you really want to take a picture against Houston? And of course, okay. See, because I have TweetDeck, I know the news. Like one of the things I gave out on
Musgrove was scratched. I beat you to it.
Right. It's off the board. See, you beat the number. You beat the number. That's going to be a push. It's going to be a DNP on whatever. So under 6.
You thought you were sharp. You were taking
right. Yeah, under 6.5. Dean, it hit. Can the RotoGrinders app tweet that out? I hit on.
Yeah, shout out to Blender. Give him a follow. Max Fried's going to be back on Friday. That's cool. Yeah, we feel like it's been a while since you've seen Max Fried. The Braves can certainly use him come playoff time. There's the Nationals lineup. I finally found it. So we have just 2 lineups to go. The later game, maybe we'll get it in this show. Maybe at Crunch Time we'll get those lineups. We probably, day game after a night game, you usually get at least something goofy. You never really know who's going to rest, and Houston might rest one of their stars. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if one of Alvarez or actually, let's see. We're projecting Altuve not to play. Did he get dinged? Did I miss that, or did they already say he's not going to play?
Did he get dinged? Is that sexual?
No, like hurt.
Oh.
I don't know what.
Dinged. I thought maybe that's the new word. I don't know. I'm old. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the kids are saying.
You think I know what the kids are saying? I do not have my finger on the button. I have no clue what they're saying. Yeah, I'm definitely out of the loop on that. All right. Yeah, they're talking about it in chat now. Nick Martinez is going to be drawing the start there for the Padres, for what it's worth. K-Town's finest. Cleveland goes nuclear after being no hits. Is there any historical fact that give facts to a team that get no hit to come back to score 10 runs? I would say for starters,
I don't think it's going to matter.
It's a small sample, I would say, is the first thing I would say. But no. I mean, I think the theory, if I'm reading that correctly, is like they're embarrassed and they're going to bounce back and score 10 runs to show like they're professionals and like they're legit good.
That's not how regression to the mean works. It doesn't happen all at once.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, but I don't think that's how that works. But that's I don't think. Yeah, and also like there's a reason why they were no hit. Obviously small sample stuff, but they're also kind of bad outside of J-Rod. And we're assuming. I know they traded Bell. We're assuming that the rest of the guys are going to be coming back today. Naylor was scratched yesterday. At least we're projecting him. Okay, yeah. So Altuve scheduled day off. That makes sense. He's 35 or so, and day game after a night game. He's been hurt several times this year. I know one was just a wrist, but okay, that's why we're projecting. They probably said last night. Maybe Dusty might have told the people. Yeah, there you go. They mentioned it on the broadcast last night. Thank you. All right, so that's why we're projecting Mauricio Dubon to lead off there for Houston. Makes a lot of sense. We're also projecting Maldonado to be the catcher for what it's worth, as opposed to Diaz. Stay tuned on that. But, yeah, Blender, official answer. Do you have an official answer, Erod versus Gore, or it's just you're open to both? You don't feel like one is distinctly better than the other? That's kind of where I'm at.
It depends on the pitch. Okay, so, Milwaukee is facing Gore, and Pittsburgh is facing Erod. So, I prefer Erod from a sense that in running the lineups, I'm getting higher projection on Milwaukee than I am Pittsburgh. So I'm much more likely to play the Milwaukee bats against Gore than the Pittsburgh bats against Rodriguez. So if anything, I'd be playing, it's quite possible playing Erod and Bido from the same game. And then stacking the Brewers.
Let me ask you this, Blender. Is 4 games enough for you to and I think, like we talked about it yesterday, where I had the thought yesterday with Lance Lynn, and I faded Lance Lynn mostly, and I thought he would give up some homers. He did. He gave up 3 homers, and I thought you can roster Lynn and some of those cheap A's, even though it was a big slate, just because the nature of how things set up, and Lynn the way he just gives up homers too. He turned out to be fine, and he turned out to give up 3 homers. So it would have been perfectly fine to roster Lynn and picking off homers against them. 4-gamer today. Is there any possibility you're open to rostering one hitter against your pitcher? And if so, what would be that?
I personally won't do it, but I think I'll allow it. I will allow it today.
Yeah.
Especially if they're cheap. If you get like a cheap power hitter or something like that, like I think that's fine. If you take Mackenzie Gore,
Joey Weimer against Gore.
Right, yeah, exactly. If you're doing something like that, yeah, absolutely. If you're taking, I don't know who on Pittsburgh. Brian. I mean, who's cheap on Pittsburgh that has power?
I mean, Connor Joe is really, and historically he's pretty good against lefties. Yeah. There's probably some pinch hit risk. Henry Davis, by the way, the catcher. Oh, he's not catcher eligible anymore, is he? Jason DeLay is their official catcher. Davis, I'm not sure if he's like DHing or how that's working, but Davis is in the outfield. They're trying to turn him into an outfielder because they have several prospects behind the dish. Okay, so he's officially – is he not caught at all this year? I know he was a catching/outfield prospect, or they're trying to make him into an outfielder. Pittsburgh has, again, a couple guys. Rodriguez, I think a bigger prospect, so they probably want him to be theoretically the catcher of the future. DeLay is doing the catching. McCutcheon is DHing, and in the outfield is Davis. I'm okay with Connor Joe.
Do you think Jason DeLay allows the 15-second clock to elapse more often than other catchers?
Yeah. I see what you did there, yes. It took me a second. I'm like, where is he going with this? I'm like, oh, there you go. All right. No is my official answer on that. By the way, Brian Hayes is back for Pittsburgh. They activated him. I think he might have been activated yesterday, but didn't play yesterday. Or in my season-long league, I know you care about these things, Blender. I wasn't allowed to make a move because I had Blender in my DL spot, IL spot. And they're like, you got to do something about this first. I'm like, oh, man, I didn't know Brian Hayes was back in our lives. But he's back. He's hitting fifth today. Sawinski buried a little bit left on left. The Pirates are there. I think they're worth rostering for large field stuff. Actually, large field stuff, and you're not having a meeting, but you could certainly touch on that strategy. You're open to probably every offense on this 4-gamer to some degree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, dude, you don't X out anyone on a 4-gamer.
Yeah. Butto Jenkins, our guy Butto Jenkins in chat, says, cut the crap, Blender. Put down the apple juice. Who is your feel it in the plums play in the morning slate?
I don't have plums. What the hell does that mean? Feel it in my plums?
It's a euphemism. You've never heard
no, I've never heard that. Feel it in your plum. I'm looking it up right now.
That's what the kids are saying.
That's what feel it.
It's like a gut. It's basically like a gut call, a gut instinct.
Well, I would see what the official.
Yeah.
Is.
Let's see what Urban Dictionary
it
has
really
to say.
It says it's Will Ferrell, Eastbound and Down.
Yeah.
When I Google it and it doesn't come up, I mean, come on, I could feel it in my plums.
Yeah. You've never heard that phrase before? You've never heard that? They don't say that.
I can feel it down in my plums. That just sounds like you have elephantitis or something.
I can't believe you've never heard that before.
No.
But okay.
I'll feel it in your gut. I obviously know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Did you reference?
I have no gut. I do have a gut, but I don't have.
You have a literal one and a metaphorical one. You know how that works.
No.
Did you watch Eastbound and Down, by the way, as a fan of comedy?
No. I think I've seen the whole series by Big T Gifts.
So. Oh no! Are you a fan of Danny McBride, or he's not for you?
Not really.
Ah, come on, Blender. Live a little bit, man. You didn't watch any of the Gemstones?
No, I haven't watched that either.
Foot Fist Way. Did you watch that?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, well, it's kind of like it's like a karate version of the Eastbound and Down character that's in a movie form. That came out.
Appealing. That made it even worse.
Yeah, well, and Will Ferrell made an appearance on Eastbound and Down as Ashley Schaefer. He was shout out to Butto Jenkins asking about it in chat there. Danny McBride was in Tropic Thunder. Did you like him in that at least?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great movie.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I got one positive thing out of you is all I wanted to get.
I'm trying to get my buckets together.
How many buttons do you have to push? I thought you're all set.
No, I had to fix something. I had to aggregate it because the lineups weren't in.
Got to carry the one.
Yeah, I got to carry a lot of stuff.
So Atlanta should be in the top bucket. They should be the top team.
They're not in the top bucket.
I was going to say, I don't know if they're going to be landing there because you said before, you kind of led the witness. You were saying that Atlanta was too expensive, which I retort and to say that's no on a 4-game slate.
For a 5-man stack, if you take 4, you could do it.
Well, I mean, I don't have to have, Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olsen. Like
You
ideally,
don't have to.
I'd like to.
I think
sure.
I want to.
Well, yeah, of course. But what this Atlanta team, 1 through 9, we talked about the reach around stack. Michael Harris banged out 2 homers yesterday. Arcia hit a homer yesterday out of the 8-9. They were, spectacular. Harris is the best 9 hitter in the league. If he was on other teams, he would be possibly a leadoff hitter, a 3-4-5 guy. So, whatever. I throw the rules out as far as I'm open to playing anybody on the Braves. So basically, this entire team were all stars, essentially. I don't know, 5 or 6
reach
guys.
Around stack.
Yeah, thanks for watching the 5 o'clock the 5 o'clock show. It's probably a head chopper thing. I don't, head chopper. I think he coined that one. I would say, but it's
people say that I have the language, the sexual innuendos from my stuff. I tried to feel into my plums, right? I made a balls reference, and it turns out that on this YouTube channel that there's reach arounds and everything.
We may have had a meeting like that, and Chop asked a question if that was something that we can do. Were you there for that? I don't know if you were there for that or not.
Yes.
There's adding some context to it.
A wraparound. That's the wraparound stack.
Well, yeah, that's the traditional term, correct?
Yeah, but you really don't even care about that. I mean, people get so in the weeds about how do you stack them in order? Do you go whatever? All the batters of the same team are correlated to each other. Obviously, there's slightly more correlation between batters that are next to each other, but not enough that you prioritize one over the other. So if you're taking 5 guys from one team, like if you want to do 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, whatever, you're getting a positive boost from the correlation coefficient exists majorly for every batter, because as the team scores more runs, obviously everyone on this team gets more plate appearances. So like, yes, it to the top end of the order, it's a little bit more, but like don't like, if I do 8-9, I do 8-9, 1, 2, 4. Like, dude, just play 5 guys from the same team or 4. I think today's
that's
slate,
the other thing is you're forcing 5, and like you
well, I'm forcing
you
5
have your
just
rules.
Just for the buckets, Dean.
Okay, so you're open to 4. You're open to
I'm
4.
open to 4. No, absolutely. Okay. On a 4-game slate, 4 format. I'll even redo the buckets. I'll redo the buckets. I'll add half 4-mans, right? But if I'm going to do a 4-man, I'm more likely to do like 4-3, right? Then do like 4-1-1-1. So like I'm at least going to do 4 3s. Right, so
Travis in chat boy asking if Arias is in the Cleveland lineup today. We don't know. We're not sure. Arias, I believe, is protected.
You may be stuck. If you put Arias in your shortstop spot, you may be stuck. If we don't get a lineup by 12:20.
Although you still have Milwaukee and Washington, and I think you probably have a cheap middle infielder for Milwaukee.
Man, not in the shortstop position. You'll need an extra guy. You'll need two to swap.
Abrams for Washington. I mean, you're going to get a lot. Well, we'll see. I guess stay tuned. And the guy that Cleveland would put in there, if Arias is not there, is probably cheap too. Like, they have a lot of cheap guys. But it's a fair point to make. Just be conscious, be aware. If you just have a 1v1, and he's probably going to be in there, but you never know. It's a day game after a night game. Yeah, all right. Are we still running the buckets? What do we have?
Yeah, I'm running the buckets right now. I'm almost done. But I added the 4 3s. So I'm doing 50% 5x. 50% 4 3s, just using the aggregate projections between the bat and plate IQ. And
I wanted to give a refresh.
Whatever the top 100, and I split it out amongst, so I get one of like every stack of every team, and then I just like, what's the highest projection? So if I go by bucket, let's see how many buckets are there. One. Okay, there's one bucket. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, how many teams are there? Okay, 8. Okay, 18. I would say that there's, I mean, they're very close to each other. So I would say there's bucket 1, then there's one team in bucket 1.
It better be Atlanta.
There's 4 teams. There's 5 teams in bucket 2.
Yeah.
And there's 2 teams in the last bucket.
Okay, let's work backwards.
And remember, this all has to do with projection and salary and how you could fit together lineups.
Yeah, let's work backwards and talk about the 2 teams that are in the last bucket.
Okay.
I think Cleveland's in the last bucket.
No, you're actually on the complete opposite side.
They're number 1.
Cleveland is literally the only team in the top bucket.
Okay. I mean, okay. Look, I mean, is Miles Straw and Stephen Kwan, they're going to single me to death?
Just for an example, just the thing, look at this line. This is the top projected lineup like that. Gore and Rodriguez, right, at pitcher. Then you have a stack of Naylor, Jimenez, Ramirez, Arias, Brennan. And your 3 one-offs are Ohtani, Acuna, and Stone Garrett.
Okay.
But this is a way to fit in an Ohtani and Acuna one-off. Because their medians are very high.
That's an interesting way to do it. I see a question in chat, by the way. Let's see. Renfroe versus Grichuk for tournaments. Do you have a lean as far as those two? They're both righties, yeah? Righties versus Chirinos. Do you have a lean? I know you're just going to say check the projections, I imagine.
Maybe the person doesn't have projections.
Chirinos has a very slight reverse splits, is what I can see, according to Derek Hardy's The Bat.
Looks like they're very closely projected to each other.
I think it's close. Like, it's a coin toss.
Renfroe, I have aggregated at 8.22 at 11 or so % owned. And Grichuk, I have as 8.21 at about 11% owned. Yeah. Flip a coin. I know it sounds stupid to say, well, which one do you like better? It's like it's so close that you're not going to do any better than flipping a coin. So you know how much time you should spend on this decision?
7 seconds.
About that. Yes.
So if you want to look at the plate IQ, Renfroe this season's had much more power right on right as opposed to Grichuk. Not terrible for Grichuk. The ISO at 156 for this year. Renfroe is 226 ISO. So if you want to go that way, he's exhibited more power. The WOBA was exactly the same. Renfroe striking out a little bit less. So per the numbers this season, and if you're shooting for power, I would take Renfroe over Grichuk.
Yeah, but you know what, Dean? Everything is said in the projections.
Yeah, and it's basically a coin toss.
Right.
Well, this is an interesting idea. By the way, K-Town's Finest in chat's talking about pairing 2 of the cheap pitchers, Blanco and Bido. There's not a ton of opportunity cost at pitcher. Gore can get up there on a given day. We've seen it before. Erod, we've seen it before. But, we're not going to see Spencer Strider out there dropping 10Ks and anybody most likely. And then pairing those 2 pitchers with Atlanta and Houston. What do you think of that as a thought process?
That's fine, but I mean, I have Houston in the last bucket also.
Wait, there's 2 teams in the last bucket, and Houston's one of them.
Yeah, one is Pittsburgh and one is Houston.
That's interesting.
The primary reason for a lot of this is that Acuna projects absurdly well.
Yeah.
So because your one-off Acuna is in all these lineups, or one-off Ohtani. Ohtani and Acuna project so well in comparison to someone like Yordan Alvarez or Kyle Tucker.
Well, the thing is, Alvarez, if he walks, it's okay, maybe he'll come around and score. If Acuna walks, you're going to get a stolen base. You almost want a single as opposed to a double sometimes because he's going to swipe that bag. So he's on pace for almost 80 stolen bases this season. It's just outrageous. I'm pulling up Giolito. I don't know how much it matters, but I want to see Giolito, how vulnerable he is as far as holding on runners. In my head, I feel like he's not great, but I could be wrong on this. Let's see. He's given up 7 stolen bases this year in 126 innings. That's not terrible. 6 last year in 161. Doesn't mean Acuna can't steal a base, but that's probably around league average, a little bit worse than league average. I mean, a little bit better than league average. Do you have a favorite individual bat that's jumping out for you here, Blunder?
I mean, I don't play individual bats in DFS.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that's coming up the most because of positional scarcity is Jose Ramirez at 5,600. I mean, I'm getting the most of Ramirez, Jimenez, Acuna. If they're cheap guys, Stone Garrett, Willie Contreras at catcher, even though he's facing Mackenzie Gore.
I like Contreras. I'd be willing to roster those guys together. It wouldn't be the worst idea.
Right. Especially catcher. The opportunity cost of catcher is not that high. As opposed to outfield.
Garrett batting 4th today at 2.2K can certainly be useful versus Miley. Probably some pinch hit risk there, a little bit there. I've not checked the official number. I'm trying to see any potential cheapies that would be worth a look. The Angels do have some cheap hitters, most of them in the back end. Who is Jordan Adams? Should I know who that is? Do you know who Jordan Adams is?
Well, just because my first name's Jordan, you think I know all of them?
I don't. Well, I mean, I don't. Is there not like a meeting?
Yeah,
like
me,
Zoom meeting
him, and Jordan Walker, right, and Jordan Montgomery. We all get together.
Last names welcome. Is Michael available? Oh, it's just first names only. How does that work? How strict are those?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's more people at the Jordan meeting than at the Cooper meeting.
I don't. Hang on, Mr. Cooper. Michael Cooper will be hanging around.
The thing I like about the Jordan meeting is
Winnie Cooper, I believe.
In the past 10 years, there's more women at the Jordan meeting now.
Yeah, it's kind of crossed over.
Not a sausage party, so I kind of like those meetings.
So this Jordan Adams, 23 years old. Well, he's got a 70 speed. How many stolen bases this guy's still in the minors? He stole 37 stolen bases this year in the minor league with 13 homers, by the way. Okay, so this is kind of sort of somewhat interesting. He's a 2K cheapie, and I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, this is his MLB debut for Jordan Adams. I don't think he's ever played a professional baseball. So a little bit of pop. What is this?
We got the Astros lineup in, by the way.
Anything of note?
Okay, let's see. Dubon, Pena, Tucker, Bregman, Alvarez, Abreu, McCormick, Diaz, Julks.
So no Maldonado. We have the better catcher in there.
Right, we have the better catcher. He's batting 8th.
Yeah. Julks, by the way,
we also get Dubon. I mean, also we're getting Dubon leading off at 3,300.
By the way, if this game calls for it, if it's like 4-4 in the 8th and Dubon's up with the bases loaded, he's getting the hook, right? Altuve's at the ballpark. He's available.
Yeah, but Dean, it's DFS. If you're playing guys, you're playing them for ceilings. So like, if you're stacking the Astros, you're not like, well, if they need Altuve, if they needed Altuve at that point, your Astros stack probably.
I want my at bats. Is all I'm saying. My at bats are precious.
You want 5? You want 4 or 5 at bats when they only score 2 runs? Who cares? You need them to score 8-10 runs. So obviously they don't need Altuve at that point.
There's guys that have 3 at bats and guys get 5 at bats. I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah, but your claim is that if they need Altuve, Dubon's the first one is going to come out. It's like, well, if he's Altuve, that means they haven't scored many runs.
No, it could be 7-7. What do you mean? Just as long as Cleveland's keeping up pace.
Yeah, I guess you have a point.
It could be 12-12.
You're right. It's not just like on one team. I thought it's more like the Cubs game yesterday, where it's just like, who cares?
Oh my gosh, I didn't play the Cubs. It was I actually broke even, and I was thrilled to break even because I should have lost. I did not have the Cubs yesterday. The opposing team, Cincinnati, it was so bad, Blender. They brought in their catcher, Luke Mlb, to pitch in the 7th inning, not the 8th inning, in the 7th. And of course, they didn't hit in the bottom of the 9th, but still, that was you don't see that very often, right? Where the opposing team gives up and fully yields in the 7th inning. And part of that probably because Brandon Williamson is pitching today, and they knew they would need him because he's horrific. And, they didn't want to fully burn out their bullpen. We do have
There's some teams bad enough, Dean. There's some teams bad enough. They should start the position player in the 1st inning.
There's some guys, I'm trying to think, that actually have pretty good ERAs. There's a catcher who does pretty well. It's made 4 or 5 or 6 appearances this year that has got an ERA like 4 or 5 or something like that. Maybe Dave knows. I see Cheese is good. Dave
Yerman Mercedes was a good pitcher as a catcher.
The Yerminator? Is that what is this the guy for the White Sox that didn't he quit baseball? I think he left baseball. I'm not sure if he's back or not. But I don't remember
what happens when you get a catcher pitching too often. He wants to get out of there.
Luke Mlb is going to quit at the age of 34. That's it. He's done. It's kind of a reward. I think the players like doing that. They've been around forever, and it's sort of fun to just go out there. And they're like, you're losing by 20 runs. Let's have a good time. And there's 162 games. We can get over it. And this is a fun way to end this one, I suppose. Dave, do you know the answer, by the way? Who's the great non-pitcher pitcher? Do we know who that is?
I do not know what you're talking about.
I'm going to Google this.
Pretty much ever, but especially also now.
That's fair. I get that a lot.
I feel the same way. That would be my exact answer.
You just don't know what I'm talking about as a general.
It's always enjoyable, and I'm glad to hear.
Yeah,
you say
it's great. It's great to listen to. It's great to listen to.
You don't have to put a lipstick on the pig. It's all right. You could just let that sit there, and it's fine.
Actually, I understand what you're talking about. I do not know. I do not follow which non-pitchers are good at pitching.
You probably were already in bed. Were you watching the Cubbies? Like just
I mean, I went
putting
to
it on?
sleep at about 14 runs. Yeah.
Did you have any Cubs last night? Anything interesting?
Yeah, it was pretty a pretty nice profit. Yeah.
That's what
Couple
she says
of
when he wins.
RotoGrinders members won big with Cub stacks last night.
If Cheese says something like it was a pretty nice profit, he probably made like $100,000.
10K, 20 grand.
It was not six figures.
Okay.
It
It was
may or may
fun.
not have been five, but it was not. It was definitely not six.
Right.
What's up, Roth? How are things?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Little bit quieter weather slate here. Colorado just blowing my mind, playing through rain again. I expected they would, but just awesome to see.
By the way, you're gonna feel. I don't know if you're sweating Colorado today. Just a heads up. Like certainly sweat it, but like if you want, but don't sweat it as hard as you typically would. It's not on a main slate. It's just kind of in the middle.
It's on
of
neither slate. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't really care. Most people don't care. Just so you know.
That is good to know. That takes away any of the intrigue or drama from the earlier set of games. Everything else looks great, so that's good to know.
There you go. Blender, anything here for the boys before we step aside and get out of here?
Well, they have to know the magic word today is combinatorics. Ah!
Does anybody get that reference?
Dean wanted to do a tribute to Pee Wee's Playhouse or something. So if you mention that on Crunch Time, everyone has to scream.
I don't know if you guys know, but that's like a Blender word. Is I the only one that picks that up? But Blender says combinatorics distinctly more than everybody else. It's like a general.
What word are you even saying?
Combinatorics. It's a mathematical term for a set of things that are proportionally correlative.
I think you're making shit up. I know all the words, and that is not a word.
Blender, unlike anybody else, he's always saying things and I just don't know what he's talking about. That's just, it must be weird to hear somebody else you never know what they're saying. It's interesting to hear, but you never know what he's talking about. That was Blender. I was Dean, the Fanduel sponsor at Crunch Time. It's starting now. You got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. You have TastefulTides, Tim, and Dave Potts, who is $100,000, $50,000, $5,000 richer today. All right, take it away, Roth.
He is richer for sure. There it is, by the way, combinatorics that we saw there.
Yeah, I didn't get to read that whole thing.
I know. I was hoping that would stay up. Here we go.
Yeah.
Combinatorics is the branch of mathematics studying the enumeration, combination, and permutation of sets of elements and the mathematical relations that characterize their properties. Whew.
Well, now I know what it means.
All right. Oh, well, now it's crystal clear. That's great. All right, that does seem like something like a word Blender and Cardi would know. Like it seems like they both may deal with that. Hey, welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Crunch Time, sponsored by FanDuel. Shout out to two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We're going to take you to lock, maybe if we get the questions. We're going to take you through lock, and we got smart guys. We got Dave Potts, Cheeseisgood in the house. What up, Cheese?
Not too much. Yeah, we got a pretty manageable little 4-gamer for this early one, and then the bigger slate is later. But as 4 gamers go, I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
Okay, that's good to hear. We got TastefulTides in the house as well. What up, Tim?
Yeah, not much. Yeah, definitely. Like Cheese says, very manageable slate. Not a lot of. I don't know. It's pretty straightforward, at least from a cash game perspective, and it's going to be fun to break it down.
Okay, excellent. Well, weather-wise, there's a really, really low chance of a sprinkle or shower in Atlanta. And then in that Colorado game, which is not on the slate, we could see storms late. They could just play through it, or they could pause and finish up, or the storms could come after the game. Everything's fine, essentially, even if you're adding in the Colorado game, which is not on the slate. So with that on the way, I think we get to dive into some of the content side of things. Cheese, either a general overview, or since it's only 4 games, we can get right into the pitcher. Break them off with the Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, I think we'll go straight to the pitching. I mean, and if they throw like that, then no one's scoring any runs today.
That was it. That is my unbreakable deuce piece right there.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Erod right there. That's what I feel like Erod. Yeah.
Yep. And speaking of the chalk, Kevin Roth just showed us why you play Erod, because we give him. I mean, how can they hit?
You give him this. You give him all this. Yeah.
I've never played baseball in my life, so
no one could have guessed it from that, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that, Eduardo Rodriguez is the chalk on both sites, and I would call it good chalk because of the size of the slate. Like with all these pitchers, there are no great pitchers today.
Mhm.
It's the kind of slate where if any of these guys were borderline chalky on a big slate, I would say it's all terrible chalk.
Yeah.
But given what we have, Eduardo Rodriguez and Mackenzie Gore are the chalk. That as a pairing on DK, and one of those two on FanDuel are in most lineups for me and for everyone. And personally, I don't care that much to overthink it and get goofy at pitching. Like I would much rather try to make up something different on the hitting side. You are totally welcome to play Lucas Giolito, even against the Braves. You know, he's got that kind of stuff that every once in a while he shows up and gets a bunch of strikeouts. It's just, I don't know, the risk versus the reward is kind of a silly thing to me. I would rather play Tanner Bybee, who I still believe is Tanner Beebe. I'd rather play Bybee than Giolito to pivot off of Erod and Gore. But I'm really not that worried about pivoting off of Erod and Gore. It's like I don't even think either of them are going to be great. I mean, Gore could give up 5 runs and still be the number 2 pitcher on the slate. And then on DK, if you really want to load up and do like a high-end Brave stack with Ohtani or a couple of the Astros bats, which is an interesting looking lineup, then you can use one of these nonsense garbage cheap guys, which would be Osvaldo Bido for the Pirates or Ronel Blanco, both real names. I definitely prefer just going with the guy who's facing the Tigers. So that's Bido, and he's 5,500. There's not a lot of lineups where it's really all that necessary. But this is one of those slates, you get 5 points from a cheap pitcher, you're probably fine because these expensive guys are not that likely to get more than, 15 DK, 25 FanDuel points anyway.
Yeah.
So basically for me, like I'm just not even thinking about the ownership or anything. I'm just playing Erod and Gore and moving on with my day.
Talk to me a little bit more about this Bido fella. Great matchup against Detroit, right? They suck. Don't we usually target Detroit? Super cheap. This seems
so that's the
like
reason he's playable. The reason he's not that playable is like there's just a couple of expensive bats. And like if you play him, you're playing Ohtani in a Brave stack, and now you have a chalky Bido lineup, which is nonsense. Because like that's the only thing you do with him. Otherwise, you're playing him and leaving salary, which is nonsense.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
He is totally playable because of the matchup and that salary.
Right. Okay. That actually makes a lot of sense. Good stuff. All right, Tim, what are your thoughts here as you kind of break this down, especially tournament wise?
Yeah, not really a lot to add. Erod is the top choice by quite a bit, in my opinion. Mackenzie Gore would be the SB2. Just, fully transparent. Like I play a cash game lineup on DraftKings, and I also play a single entry lineup on DraftKings. I am playing Gore and Rodriguez in my cash game, and then I'm going Erod and Bybee on my single entry team. That's just me just trying to get a little different. Mackenzie Gore is probably a better pitcher, probably in a better matchup, but I'm just trying to do something a little different and not just eat all the chalk. I'm certainly not recommending anybody else do that if they don't want to, but I'm just telling people what I'm doing. Cheese really mentioned that there are 6 guys that are playable. The only 2 guys that I would likely just X out of my player pool would be Wade Miley and Yanni Trinos. All the other guys I think are worthy of at least being in a 150 max GPP pool in some capacity. I would try to get overweight Erod, and then also Cheese briefly touched on Giolito. He's really expensive on DK in a horrible matchup, but at 8,800 on FanDuel, I have a little bit of interest in him just because he does have the potential to shut down this Atlanta offense. I mean, he probably won't, but I mean, if the field is really, really skeptical, which they are going to be of him, I'd say take a couple shots on him in tournaments.
Okay. I've got this question from K-Town's Finest, and it's kind of a fun one, so we'll ask it here before we go to bats. He says, what are your thoughts on going Bido Blanco with high dollar bats minus Acuna Otani? Are we getting too goofy? Are we doing too much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally don't even understand why you would do, like, what are the high end bats that you want without Acuna Otani? Like, I don't even know what that means, really.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let's talk about some of the bats. Let's talk about some of the stacks. By the way, I mentioned this show is sponsored by Fanduel. Make sure you're signing up for the Fanduel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers bet $5, get $100 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. And I think later tonight, we're going to have the RotoGrinders sponsored FanDuel single entry series happening as well. So make sure you are getting in those contests early because they'll fill up and then you can't get in them and then you miss out on bonus dollars and that's silly. Let's talk about some of the stacks and Tim, you can go first.
So Atlanta is always going to be popular just because they're the best offense in baseball. I don't think people have a lot of belief in Giolito at this point. I think they're completely fine. Cleveland is definitely going to have ownership despite getting no hit last night. They are very, very affordable. They've got really, really great, cheap salary saving options. And they also have guys like J Ram and Josh Naylor that have, home run upside. So Cleveland and Atlanta are in great spots. I think if I'm making, quite a few GPP teams, like I kind of like Milwaukee as like a contrarian stat just because Mackenzie Gore can get kind of wild and he can be inconsistent. So I think that Milwaukee is just kind of a different type of stack, right? Like it's hard to get different on such a short slate. So I think Milwaukee has the ceiling to win this slate, and I don't think that they're going to garner too much ownership because Gore is going to be a very, very popular pitcher. And then the only other team I want to mention real quick are the Angels, because obviously we have Otani. And then we got guys that just recently got traded to the Angels, like Grichuk and CJ Cron, going up against Yanni Chirinos. So I think they're in an absolutely tremendous spot.
Okay, great. We'll kick it to Cheese here. Cheese, Boss Bro would like to point out that Cleveland is cheeks. That means they're booty. That means they are not good.
That's not at all incorrect. And yet, Blanco doesn't have an idea of where the plate is. And so you can be as cheeks as you want. Like if he's they're not going to swing if the ball is way over here, which is where it's going to be. So
right.
I don't mind the stack.
Okay.
But also totally in agreement with that. Like I really don't like any individual Cleveland bats other than Ramirez. And maybe a cheap Bo Naylor. Like this is a team that's really kind of stack or bust, and only stack because Blanco again does not know where this. I don't know if he can't see the plate from so far back, or
he might not
but
understand the rules.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why he may not understand it. But as far as stacking, to me, the Angels end up being my favorite team. Because basically, other than Otani, there's a lot of ways to get super cheap. Like on DK, they called up this rookie Jordan Adams. I don't know Jordan with a Y. I'm not sure if that's how you spell it, but he's a pretty decent minimum salary play along with like Chad Wallach. So I like that you can get really cheap with the Angels, along with an Otani. Obviously Atlanta, but kind of going back to I'm just playing the chalk pitchers, and I don't want the super chalk combo of being like, I don't want to go Beto with Gore or Rodriguez and a Brave stack like everybody else who's doing that. So I would rather play different on offense with Angels, with Nationals, some individual Brewers bats, even in Gore lineups. And I've even got a fair amount of Tigers. because that's what you do on a 4-game slate.
Yeah, right. Do something a little goofy. All right. Let's go around the horn position by position. We like to start at catcher. My guy Butthole Jenkins says Riley Adams that's his name. Don't laugh. No, that's his name.
I understand.
Yeah.
So we got Cheeks and Butko Jenkins. I mean, we're really doing a lot today.
Yeah, we are. We're pushing it a little bit. He says Riley Adams is the most underpriced player, hands down, on DK? ? I don't know who that is, but I want to.
He's a good cheap catcher for the Nationals.
Well, that's good timing. All right. Well, geez, I assume you like him.
Yeah. Small sample size and all, but if you like small sample size, Riley Adams 317 ISO against lefties this year. It's like 46 plate appearances. It's not nothing, but he actually is like a good cheap catcher. He and Bo Naylor are both super cheap. Basically, this position is William Contreras is the best play. Travis d'Arnaud is the other best play. And then you're just going cheap. Probably in a stack, although I really don't mind any of Naylor, Adams, and even a Chad Wallach as a cheap one-off. And that's everything.
Okay. Tides, you got anything you want to add there?
No, I mean it's Adams or Naylor for cash games, and then Contreras would be like the expensive guy. Basically exactly what she says.
Okay, how about first base?
Yeah, so Shohei Ohtani is the top choice. I don't think it's particularly close. Matt Olson, those two are just spectacular. On DraftKings, I wonder, I think a lot of people are going to go to Ohtani, or Olson. So I think guys like CJ Cron might kind of get left out because he's kind of at that funny price point where he's at $4,800. And people might say, well, let me just pay the extra to get to Ohtani or Olson. So I think Cron is a really good tournament play. Josh Naylor, we haven't got that lineup, right, Dave? Like we haven't
not seen it yet.
Yeah, so I mean, assuming Naylor's in the lineup, he's 3,200 on FanDuel, he's 4,200 on DraftKings. I think he's completely fine. It's Jose Abreu on FanDuel's 2,800, but I don't really like that unless you really, really just need somebody cheap. I'd rather pay up to like Olson, Cron, Naylor.
Okay, easy enough. Cheese, your thoughts?
I don't have that many. Like on FanDuel, Ohtani's not first base eligible, so it's pretty much Olson or everything else. To me, CJ Cron is the next everything else. I'm a little more interested in going cheap on DraftKings, where the price it's kind of more 3 tiers of pricing instead of just 2 tiers on FanDuel. So like a cheap Eduardo Escobar, Joey Meneses, honestly, even Connor Joe against Erod are fine as punts. Okay,
then take me to second base.
There was not much here, even when we thought Altuve was going to play. I think on his own as a one-off outside of stacks, I think Andres Jimenez is weird chalk, and I don't care for it at all. Like this is where I very much want to pay up for Albies or just go cheaper. I think Rengifo will be pretty popular on DK as well. Like he and Mauricio Dubon are the same salary on DK, pretty cheap. And like just totally fine. But this is the position where I see the biggest gap between the cheap nonsense and the expensive guys. So I do want to get Albies.
Okay, great. Tim, your thoughts at second?
Yeah, not much to add. Second base is incredibly, incredibly ugly. So
Cheeks? Is it Cheeks?
It's Cheeks.
It's Cheeks. Yeah, second base is definitely Cheeks. It's Dubon or Rengifo for me in catch games. Like she said, like Jimenez is kind of weird chalk. And Albies is obviously amazing and he's great. I'm going to prioritize my spend up elsewhere. So I'm not going to be able to quite get to him, but he's fabulous.
Okay. Third base.
Yeah, so Jose Ramirez on both sites is by far my favorite option. And then it's Austin Riley. And then after that, pretty significant drop off. Obviously, you can get to guys like Bregman if you want to. Rengifo again, but he's, I think, way better served as a second baseman than a third baseman. And other than that, I don't really have any other options that I'd like to get to.
All right, Cheese, your thoughts at third?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, Ramirez and Riley are kind of their own tier up top, which on FanDuel, there's enough discount to Bregman that I like him about as much as Ramirez and Riley. And then McKinstry as a punt. He's more punty on FanDuel. I think DraftKings, I prefer going to the Angels guys. But yeah, I do like a little McKinstry on FanDuel.
Okay. Shortstop.
It's cheeky as well. There's just not that many players available. I am playing some Adames, even in Gore lineups. Like Jeremy Pena is that guy that just isn't really good enough to want to spend on, and even on FanDuel where he's cheap and you're not spending on him. I don't know. Outside of stacks, I really want to say I don't like him, but I don't like anybody else. Like it's just a bunch of why do these people exist? I think I just want to play Abrams in the lefty as kind of the go-to guy. But essentially, I don't want a shortstop if I could just pass on that.
Okay, Tim, you cannot just pass on that. You do need one. Tides, you got anything there at short?
Not really. I mean, it's pretty ugly. The only guy that we haven't mentioned that I think if you need a punt is Gabriel Arias. Like he's 2,500 on DraftKings and he is 2,300 on FanDuel. Like again, not somebody that I'm like really want to play, but if you're stacking Cleveland or if you just need a cheap fill-in play, he's fine. I really like Cheese's C.J. Abrams call, left on left. I think C.J. Abrams is just way too cheap on FanDuel, regardless of not having the platoon advantage. So I think he's a fantastic play. But other than that, it's pretty gross.
Okay, how about the outfield?
Yep. So FanDuel is where Ohtani is just outfield eligible. So he is my top spend over Acuna, but of course Acuna is a fantastic play. If you can play both of them in cash games, then I say go for it. You got guys like Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker that are fabulous for GPPs. Hunter Renfroe is pretty cheap on both sites. I think he makes for a really strong play. Randall Grichuk is affordable on both sites. I think that he's there. The whole Angels team, I think, is in a really good spot. And then, of course, don't forget about some of these Atlanta guys like Azuna and Michael Harris. So those would be my guys in the outfield.
All right, Cheese, your guys in the outfield?
Yeah, I think now's a good time on a slow day to talk about what Tim almost just did. Is anytime I'm talking out loud, mostly to myself, and I say Ronald Acuna and then Marcelo Ozuna, I just end up with an Acuna Ozuna, and it's really hard to get away from. But it's anyway, Acuna and Ozuna is how you say it there. It's really remarkable how many times as I'm typing the musings, I really do just speak out loud to myself while I'm doing it. I'm like Acuna Ozuna. So I do like both of those guys a lot. I play Ohtani over Acuna, I guess. But just play them both if you have salary. And then Tucker and Alvarez are the kind of fantastic leftovers to spend up on. Like the person, whoever it is that asked about, can you play Beto and Blanco and spend up without Ohtani, Acuna? The name, I'm all over the place with the names now. Like Tucker and Alvarez would be what you have left to play there as spend ups, and they're always great. Tucker on FanDuel in particular is priced down like almost $1,000 less than those top two. So I do like him. Renfroe is probably my favorite cheap-ish on FanDuel guy. Whereas on DK, I think it's reasonable to just skip all of those top 4 and play around in the 4K range. Do like, Ozuna and Lane Thomas and Renfroe and Rosario. I can even throw like Brian Reynolds in there, Kerry Carpenter. But if you do want to play an expensive guy or even 2, you've got like Stone Garrett, Corey Julks. There's plenty of cheap stuff to make it work. So this is the one position where we actually do have so many options that you can kind of do it whatever way you want. Those other positions, you're kind of stuck to, you play the one good player or one of these 2 bad players. But outfield, you can really go whichever way you want.
Okay. All right.
The only other guy that I think that we didn't mention in the outfield that I kind of like, who's kind of cheap, is Will Brennan. So again, we haven't got that lineup out yet, but if he's in, I kind of like him.
Okay, great. We have about 6 minutes here until we hit the lock. So let's open it up. If you've got any questions, it can be about literally anything. Do let us know. We prefer questions about lunch, but if it's about baseball, that is fine. We'll allow it.
Yeah, I've been struggling hard with lunch because I'm torn. I really kind of just want wings, but I don't know what kind then.
Yeah.
What's your go-to sauce? Like, what do you mix them with?
So usually at lunchtime, I'll go with some kind of spice. Like when I have wings at night and I'm old, I got to go like teriyaki or something. So I'm not up all night with the heartburn. But at lunchtime, I'll probably just do a straight, like either medium or hot, depending on where I get them and what their spice level is.
I like to get hot, and then I try to like, can you mix that with a honey barbecue? So it's like a hot.
Yeah, go a little back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm about that. Let's see. We got anything else? It's literally just people talking about lunch. I'm going to apparently the best sushi spot in town. It's this little hole in the wall, but you got to get there 30 minutes before it opens and sit there in the sun like a lunatic, getting baked in the Houston heat. Otherwise, it's like a 3-hour wait.
Please do, like, you got to bring an umbrella. And there's nothing better than the guy with the umbrella in the sun.
Yeah.
Like, that guy knows what's going on. He's like, I don't care what you think of me. I care that I survive.
Right. I think a parasol maybe needed here. Let's see. You're gonna pop open.
Oh man, Peter going to Wendy's. I support that.
Wendy's solid, man.
My problem with the Wendy's, no matter how hard I try, I can't get them to make me a burger the way I want it. Like I order it one way and there's just like whatever random stuff they want to put on it is what's on my burger that day. That's just my local Wendy's, but I want to get the burger that I order sometimes.
It is sometimes, yeah. That's the best thing about like Chick-fil-A is that they never screw up. And
if they do, they will like basically owe you for life. And like, what can I do to make this up to you? Here's $1,000 and 42 free sandwich coupons. Like
shower you in French fries. Yeah. All right. We got a few QQs coming in here. Let's see. DKGBP, Tanner or Gore? I want both of your answers to this. Cheese, you first.
I mean, it's definitely Gore as the better play and the chalk play, but I do think like this is what Tim said right at the beginning. I think if you're moderately chalky everywhere else, then that's where it's very reasonable to just play Bobby ahead of Gore. But like the correct answer is Gore.
Okay. Dan Jan says, hey, Tim. Oh, Tim, did you have an answer there between the two?
No, Cheese answered it perfectly.
Great. Okay. Dan Jan says, Tim, do you like a mini Washington with a mini Atlanta for stacks on DK single entry? Little mini.
I have really no problem with that at all.
Okay. I feel like it's one of those days where it'd be hard to find stacks that you guys have a problem with, right? It's just
that's the thing. Like the one person in chat who said they're avoiding all the expert advice. That means you're not playing because we like all 8 stacks. So.
All right, let's see. Michael says, hey, how about a home run call? I like it. We have not done that. Tim, I'm going to put you on the spot for a home run call.
Oh, man. Like? All right.
Otani's hitting a bomb, but that doesn't count.
Well, I'm going to go Renfroe, but let me look up his odds real quick.
I was wondering if I was going to be allowed to say Otani. I guess not. If even you're not allowed to say Otani. Roth, you can take Otani. I mean,
okay, I call Otani.
Well, I mean, Roth is on the show, so you really can't say Otani. That's like stealing his.
That's stealing my thunder. It's not allowed. Was Renfroe your choice here?
Renfro's my choice. I'm just looking up his odds real quick to see if I would actually bet. Plus 430. Plus 430 is not horrible. Yeah, I'd do that.
Okay.
I'd do that.
Cheese, you got a name for me?
I am going to go with William Contreras, who I like playing even in my Mackenzie Gore lineups.
Okay. Got a question from Marcus Martinez. Cheese. I'm going Erod and Gore in a $1 GPP. What is your favorite stack with these pitchers?
So yeah, that's the one where like that's the chalky combo, but the combo I like. I would go to the Angels there personally.
Okay, great. Got maybe a minute or two until lock, and believe it or not, we've caught up on all the questions. Maryi Don Yeezy says, appreciate the content. Tim and Cheese, he just completely ignored me. That's cool. Good luck on your lineups. Hey, this is a good point to hit a little thumbs up for us. It's a free show. Two of the sharpest minds in the biz. And all we ask is that you hit that little thumbs up so that we can keep this show free for you. That's what we're trying to do. And we need eyeballs and we need likes to make that happen. Okay. Well, gentlemen, we're out of questions and it's lunchtime and I'm hungry. So I think I'm going to go do that. Eric says my weather analysis was spot on today. It's a tough one, but thank you. So for Cheese, for Tim, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you later on today. You have been crunched.